Hello, and welcome to this virtual theater talk for Roundabout Theater Company's production of Birthday Candles by Noah Heidel. I'm Leah Reddy, and I'm a teaching artist with Roundabout's Education Department.
And hello, I'm Daniel Sullivan, also a teaching artist with Roundabout's Education Department.
Dan, I am so excited to have you here for your first virtual theater talk.
Hey, thanks very much, Leah. I am thrilled to be here. This is a magical play, and I love talking about it. Birthday Candles is a play that asks the question, what makes a lifetime into a life?
Ooh, I love that. And to give a little more context, Birthday Candles is a 90-minute one-act play that covers the life of one Ernestine Ashworth from the ages of 17 to 101. It takes place entirely on her birthdays, and it involves a cake and a goldfish. And that's kind of all you need to know to enjoy the rest of this talk.
I think it might be the only play in history that involves both a cake and a goldfish.
I'm sure someone will know, and they will tell us if we are wrong.
Right. So playwright Noah Heidel, he was born in 1978 in Grand Rapids, Michigan, which is where Birthday Candles takes place. They say write what you know, and he certainly did. Noah Heidel became interested in becoming a playwright in high school after reading Death of a Salesman. And then
Ooh.
get this, Leah, he decided to teach himself how to become a playwright by reading a play every day for the next few years. He
Wow.
says he was learning autodidactically. Autodidactically. That is a challenging word to say. He says he was learning autodidactically, teaching himself by absorption or immersion. He went to Princeton and he met and worked with Christopher Durang there, then on to Juilliard, where he worked with Durang again and with the great Marcia Norman.
Hmm.
So Princeton and Juilliard, he is a very well-educated man.
Well educated and self educated, which is actually probably a really good combo.
Yes, yes, it is. So before this Broadway debut of his, Noah Heidel had his work produced at all the great regional theaters in America, the Goodman, Lincoln Center, Huntington, Long Wharf, Woolly Mammoth, South Coast Rep, Rattlestick Playwrights Theater in New York, and Williamstown Theater Festival. One of my favorites of his is a somewhat eccentric play called Smokefall. It was really well reviewed in its first production in Chicago at the Goodman, but I saw it at MCC Theater in New York in 2016. A remarkable play.
Hmm.
He is also a Hollywood scriptwriter. His screenplay Stand Up Guys was produced in 2013, and that starred, get this, Al Pacino, Christopher Walken, and Alan Arkin. So Noah Heidel was doing very well for himself. He's very accomplished. But Leah, it wasn't always that way.
Oh,
There's
really?
an
Tell me about that.
yeah, there's an infamous story about Noah Heidel and his production of Mr. Marmalade at Roundabout Theater Company. Picture this, it was 2005, only a couple years after graduating from Juilliard, and Roundabout Theater Company approaches Noah Heidel, says, "We'd like to produce your play, Mr. Marmalade." It was his first big production in New York, and it was to be at the Laura Pels Theater off-Broadway. Unfortunately, in Noah's words, it went so poorly with both critics and audiences that they created Roundabout Underground. What he means by that is that his play was universally disliked by roundabout audiences and by critics. He went to the bathroom during intermission of one of the previews, and the gentleman next to him said, "Worst play ever." And Noah turned back to him and said, "I know, right?" He says he's never used a lobby bathroom since. But the nice part about it is that Roundabout Theater Company felt so bad that his production had gone poorly and that this was his introduction to the New York scene that Roundabout created a brand new series, the Roundabout Underground, in the Black Box Theater. Now, many of our audience members probably have attended productions there. The point of that space is new plays by playwrights having their very first production in New York. See, Roundabout realized that a lot of the folks coming to the off-Broadway, more established space wanted to see established plays, but that there is a whole other audience that wants to see new plays by new playwrights, and that Roundabout could be the place for those plays to be produced. It was because of Noah's Mr. Marmalade going poorly that Roundabout created the Roundabout Underground. Noah Heidel has this to say about that sequence of events. He says, "The symmetry of my first play going so badly that a theater would create a new program for emerging writers, and now this new play going to Broadway more than 15 years later is one of the most beautiful things that's ever happened to me. Everybody loves a comeback."
I love that story so much. And here's what I will add to it. While Roundabout's audiences in 2005 did not like Mr. Marmalade, in 2009 it did find an audience that loved it. And that audience was actually in Germany. There was a
Amazing.
German language production of Mr. Marmalade at the Staatstheater Karlsruhe, and that launched Noah Heidel's perhaps unlikely career in German speaking theater. So I had the chance to interview him about this, and this is what he said about that first production. I went over and saw Mr. Marmalade, and it was absolutely nuts. Watching your own play is like watching a dream with a bunch of other people. And then when that dream is in German, it is exponentially weirder. And so from that first production, his reputation in Germany has only grown. He's a major playwright there and is often mentioned in the same breath as Chekhov and Beckett.
Wow.
And this goes so far as in 2018, he was the playwright in residence at the Mannheim National Theater. And as of March 2022, when we're recording this, 8 of the 17 plays that he has had professionally produced have been produced only in German. And there will be a 9th this fall. And perhaps most excitingly, next month in April of 2022, a German language production of Birthday Candles is scheduled to open at the Deutsches Theater in Berlin. And
Exquisite
reflecting
timing.
yeah, it's exquisite, right? And what he says about this is that his career in German-speaking theater is one of the most unexpected blessings of his life, and the support he's received there is in part why he's continued to write plays. So thank
Wow.
you, Germany, for encouraging and support.
Yeah. Let's talk about the encouragement and support of this play that folks are going to see at Roundabout, Birthday Candles. So this play was written in Detroit. Here's the story. A few years ago, 3 women started a theater called the Detroit Public Theater. Noah Heidel was living in Detroit at the time and asked for a meeting. At this meeting, one of the founders of that theater, Courtney Burkett, said to him, "I bet you don't know how we already know each other." And he said, "Oh, you're right. I don't know why we already know each other." Turns out she was the assistant director on a small play he'd had produced in New York City downtown when he was in college. So they had a history together, even though they had never directly worked together. So Noah said, "Yes, I would like to help out the Detroit Public Theater." They said, "We'd love to have you as a part of our organization." He started writing scripts for fundraising at the theater. He also ran the soundboard for them. And finally, they asked him about new play development. And he said, magically, that he suggests they do something a little bit different in Detroit. He said, and I quote, "No playwright wants another reading, another workshop. We just want you to say yes." And so you know what? They did. Detroit Public Theater commissioned him saying, "Write whatever you want, and we promise to produce it next spring." That was 2018, and the result is this play, Birthday Candles, now on Broadway, from Detroit. And here's a special note. This play was inspired by Thornton Wilder's The Long Christmas Dinner. Stay tuned at the end of this video for a special interview with Tappan Wilder, literary executor for the Wilder family and real-life nephew of Thornton Wilder. That's coming up next.
That's going to be so much fun. So Birthday Candles was actually in its second week of rehearsals in March of 2020 when the COVID-19 pandemic shut down theaters. So this long-awaited Broadway debut just cut short. And Heidel actually wrote a reflection piece on his experiences that was published in The Hollywood Reporter. And I think rather than go into the sort of disappointment side of that whole experience, he went philosophical and he said, "What's the point of rehearsing a play that might not ever be seen? My answer is simple. To offer ourselves rest from an uncertain world and to express in art our inner experience of living, no matter if anybody witnesses it or not."
Wow.
But luckily, we are all going to be able to witness this production at long last when the show begins performances in March of 2022. This production is directed by Vivian Benesh, who is currently the producing artistic director at Playmakers Repertory Theater in North Carolina. She's had a long career as a director and an actor and a teacher. And fun fact, she actually made her Broadway debut as an actor at Roundabout in 1997 in Deep Blue Sea.
Full circle.
Yeah. And another fun fact, she actually went to graduate school with Debra Messing, the star of Birthday Candles.
Aha, yes, the star. And let's talk about some of the other folks that are going to be on stage. Deborah Messing takes the lead role. She, of course, is the Emmy Award-winning actor from Will and Grace, also from The Mysteries of Laura and my personal favorite, Smash. Her only other Broadway appearance was in 2014 in John Patrick Shanley's Outside Mullingar. You'll also see on stage Enrico Colantoni, recently of HBO's Station 11, and previously of television's Veronica Mars, and my personal favorite, the sitcom Just Shoot Me. On the big screen, Enrico was in A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood, the Mr. Rogers Story, and also Galaxy Quest. You'll also see actors John Earl Jelks, Crystal Finn, Susanna Flood, and Christopher Livingston. Our design team is quite spectacular on this one. Christine Jones leads the set design. Her magical set designs have been seen in Harry Potter and the Cursed Child. Leah, you said something about the set design for this show that struck me. What was it?
I said it's a kitchen in the middle of the universe.
It looks like a kitchen in the middle of the universe. Yes, it's magical. There's something surreal about the set design. I love it. The costume design is by Toni Leslie James. You saw her costume designs in Roundabout's production of Bernhardt Hamlet, but also she's well known for her designs in Come From Away. Lighting design is by Jen Shriver, who designed What the Constitution Means to Me. Sound design is by John Gramata. Original music in the play by Kate Hopgood. And that brings us to our entire team. Yeah, it's looking very good. Looking very good.
I'm curious, Anne, what are you looking forward to seeing most in this production?
Well, something about Noah's writing has always appealed to me. There's a lyrical quality to it, a magical quality to it. One of my favorite quotes from this play is, "Eggs, butter, sugar, salt, the humblest ingredients. But when you turn back and look far enough, you see atoms left over from creation." It's lyrical, it's poetic, and I'm looking forward to seeing that kind of language on stage.
That's a wonderful thing to look forward to. I think I'm looking forward to how we see the passage of time handled on stage. I explained the play to some students at Brooklyn School for Music and Theater who are going to see it at the end of the month. And they immediately hooked into this idea of time elapsing or time passing in this way that you can perceive or not perceive, especially after these 2 years of the pandemic where they feel like they've missed 2 years of their high school experience and time has just passed them by. So that was cool to see them make that connection. And that's what I'm looking forward to seeing on stage and how audiences respond to that.
Well, it's bound to be a beautiful production. Leah, I'm so grateful to you for letting me on today to help you talk about it.
Thank you so much, Dan. And for the rest of y'all, stick around because we're going to be talking with Tappan Wilder, nephew of Thornton Wilder and literary executor of the Wilder estate. I am delighted to be joined by Tappan Wilder, nephew of the legendary playwright Thornton Wilder and literary executor of the Wilder family estate, among many other distinguished careers. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us.
I'm honored and pleased to be here.
So we're talking to you because Noah Heidel acknowledges that Birthday Candles is directly inspired by The Long Christmas Dinner, which is a one-act play written by your uncle and first performed in 1931. Can you tell us a little bit about that play and what you know of its origins?
Sure. I could go on for hours, but I'll give you the quick and short sort of overview of the birth of a very remarkable work. It's one of 6 plays that were published in 2 editions. One is the $2.50 number you can just buy at any store, and this is 1931, as you say. And it also was accompanied by a special edition. This is the Great Depression, remember, that would cost you $12. And I have a copy of that just to show the special edition. And it was published, the special edition was published by Yale University Press. Thornton was an alumnus of Yale. And here's what it looks like. It came in a special box, you see.
It's beautiful.
And it had a cover designed by the university printer, who was a very famous figure. And you open it up, and it says that 525 copies were printed, 500 for sale, number 41. And there's his signature, you see. The reasons he got the red carpet treatment is not because he was known at the time as a playwright, But as a very great novelist, a few years before, he published a novel called The Bridge of San Luis Rey, which absolutely turned him overnight from an unknown writer into a household word. It was so famous. It sold so many copies in this country, in England, almost over 300,000. Now, you and I are used to editions in the millions, but believe me, in 1927, 28, this was very big news. And as I say, he went overnight into, and he published 2 other novels in a 4-year period. And all of a sudden, a guy who was scratching, looking for his next meal, had what in contemporary dollars amounted to over $2 million.
Wow.
This was big. So anything he wrote was going to be received with enormous interest, and if you'll pardon the expression, a red carpet treatment. So that's what happens with his plays. But the timing was perfect for other reasons. When my uncle was born in 1897, believe me, I'm not going to stay with us much longer, but you got to have a little background here.
Absolutely.
He grew up, and during his teens and 20s, the landscape of American theater changed from being relatively undeveloped to having thousands of, quote, little theaters, neighborhood theaters. And schools of drama were being established. The Yale School of Drama, for example, in 1925. And schools having drama programs. A whole world was changing, and it was a world of neighborhood theaters and amateur theaters that had never really existed before. And they all were petri dishes for short plays. That's just exactly what they needed. And festivals were coming in, and the students would do one-act plays. And Thornton's one-act plays in 1931, including especially The Long Christmas Dinner and another one called The Happy Journey to Trenton and Camden, and one more called Pullman Car, that's 3 of the 6, really hit hard and were soon being done all over the country after they were first produced. And you asked me where it came from. Well, he wrote these plays in Europe and in Germany, and that's another root of which Noah, I'm sure, knows well, that Thornton was, 31 when this was published. Even as a kid, he was haunting the Berkeley Library and reading about what was going on in Europe, which is where a lot of extraordinary things were going on in Europe. And while just before he wrote these, he went to Germany and he saw, I think, 62 plays in X number of weeks.
Oh, wow.
So he was absorbing all kinds of radical and exciting dramatological material, and he's reading about Chinese theater, and he'd been in China as a kid. And whenever you read about Thornton Wilder, people always say America's most erudite playwright. Well, he was erudite from a young age. And that's my last 2 points I want to make about where this comes from. He was a born dramatist. His detour into fiction was a kind of detour. All he really wanted to do was write plays. All the techniques that he's going to show off in Our Town in a Decade and The Skin of Our Teeth, the plays we know so well, were there. But here, end of my speech on a big subject is the fact that one-act plays don't have a lot of visibility. Mm-hmm. They're done all the time, quietly, everywhere. Thornton Wilder could have, the income that he got from these plays starting in the early 30s, he used to say, I could live on that. And he could. I've seen his tax returns. Not huge, but you get a few bucks from a high school here, a high school there, even in the Great Depression, not so bad. I looked at the last couple of years of the productions of these plays, and you take those 6 plays that I mentioned, and they've been done over 250 times in the last 6 years. Just, I didn't count the 2 COVID years previous to that.
Yeah.
And 75, almost 80 of them were the Long Christmas Dinner. That's been going on for years and years and years. And they're fabulously influential. Artists find them. Noah found the Long Christmas Dinner.
Yes, I'd love to dig into that a little bit.
That's the end of my lecture.
Great. Yeah, it was a great lecture, and I want to just dig into what you're saying. So I had a chance to talk to Noah earlier this week, and I think he's very fond of saying that Birthday Candles is the longer and worse version of the Long Christmas Dinner.
No.
And I would love to know, since I know you've read the script, you have not seen the show. Actually, it has not started performances yet, so neither of us have seen it. What parallels do you see between the Long Christmas Dinner and Birthday Candles?
Well, a lot. First of all, a lot. First of all, I think it's there are three things in the Long Christmas Dinner. By the way, it's been an opera. It's been televised. I mean, it's just hugely done again. And I think Noah knows all that. Well, first of all, it's time, the way they deal with time. He's deeply influenced by that. The nonlinear sense of time is of course key to both books. In the Long Christmas Dinner, you've got 4 generations in half an hour, 4 generations in 90 years. It also, besides time, of course, it's place. And that is very similar and different, actually. The place, of course, is a kitchen in Noah's play. And at the center of the kitchen is the cooking of a cake. And it's a recurring theme that is very real. No, in the Long Christmas Dinner, it's a Christmas dinner, which goes on for 94 generations, 90 years. And but it's also much more about the house that it's in. Mm-hmm. So he chose to be much more internalized in terms of the experience with the actors. There's a sense when you read the Long Christmas Dinner, what's going on outside. They're putting in tennis courts. The house is suddenly getting old. At the time it was new, and factories are coming in. And at the end, this kind of a distant relative of some note, we don't quite know how, is living there alone. And the house is old and the family's moved to another part of the country. Noah chose to have this extraordinary figure that he has running through this, a real Wilder-esque figure, if I may be so bold. But I think the great similarity between 2 plays is he's teasing with the same questions that many playwrights tease, but in a sort of a emotional, wilder way. We live, we die, and both plays deal with families. Noah's Family is a modern play. There are divorces, references to gayness, stuff like that. That is not in Wilder's play, but they're all dealing with life, death, anger, remorse. And one very interesting thing that Thornton always included in terms of the human condition, which Noah makes a lot of, and that's surprise. There's surprises in all our lives. And at the end, they both share a kind of poignant humanity. What's it all add up to? Reading his play reminded me of a piece of paper I came across in the Yale archives, which is where Wilder's papers are, some years ago. Somebody had typed out and sent him a line that he'd written about our town in 1957. He wrote The play is an attempt to find a value above all price for the smallest events in our daily life. And then he had added in his handwriting, and this was when he was a much older man, maybe 25 years later. He puts it so well, but that is absurd. The generations of men, and we would say women today, men and women follow one upon the other in apparently endless repetition. They are born, they grow up, they marry, they have children, they die. Where shall we seek value above all price in these recurrent situations? What an important question to raise. It's the artist's job to do it. And I think Thornton Wilder and Noah Heidel do it. God bless them.